This is Anne-Marie Leake, Vice President of Communications for ePay Resources. Welcome to the Payment Space.
I'm pleased to welcome Tim Thorson, Senior Vice President at Regions Bank, also longtime board member and past board chair at ePay Resources and previously EastPay, and this year's Richard R. Oliver Leadership in Payments Award winner, to our Payment Space podcast brought to you by ePay Resources. This is being recorded live at Notch's Smarter Faster Payments 2024 in Miami, and I'm your guest host, Peter Davey, the Payments Jedi. Tim, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Peter. It's great to be here.
So, thinking about payments risk and fraud, a topic that I know is very dear to your heart, how have you been working with your bank and across the industry to try to address some of the new problems that are happening in the payment space?
Well, I think most people would agree that one of the issues that is becoming front and center is this whole notion of authorized push payments, and the fact that despite anything that we do as a bank to set up security procedures, if the client is convinced that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, no amount of callbacks or any of the protections that you put in for that client are going to work. As a matter of fact, they're going to possibly admonish you for not getting their payment out timely. You know, what's the holdup? What's the friction? That payment doesn't look good. Well, send it. And the problem is, in many cases after that, of course, the bank is going to end up making that client whole based on the relationship. So there's losses, and I think just in general, I think what's been going on over the last 20, 30 years is that payments have been evolving, and everything has been geared with a focus towards convenience and speed and reducing friction. But at the same time, I don't think there has been the same amount of effort or resources poured into what that's going to open up as far as what the bad guys can do, because they use those processes too. And that we know they're very good at it, extremely smart guys. And, people ask me what keeps me up at night. It's B2B payments that are going to the wrong place. It almost makes me semi-nostalgic for the days when corporate trade payments were debits, because we built this huge structure over all the years over withdrawals. And the protections in there don't apply at all when it's a credit push. So we are working on that at our bank, and obviously we're looking at it a lot harder now after the recent rule approval on the RDFI having to do something for the first time. We were doing some things, but inadequate, and I think all of us need to come up to speed on the whole notion of anomaly detection, outliers, and maybe some tough love with our corporate originators about how they've opened themselves up with this whole convenience notion of taking things like instructions for changing accounts by an email. I mean, that's as bad as what the mortgage people had to go through when they learned their lesson on the closing fees. You just can't do it. Email's not secure. So we're working on that, and it's a big push on our side, both for the programming side of it, to build basically heuristics at a scale that I'm not sure anyone contemplated before. And we're a mid-size, regional. Part of me can't fathom how some of the really big banks would scale that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think when we think about payments fraud, I think one of the general challenges we have is because of the way in which financial institutions operate, we sometimes don't know the total cost of fraud across the industry. So, some of that gets pushed under the rug just based on the fact that it's a customer good or, hey, mistakes happen type thing. So I think the point that you're raising around, this authorized push fraud is very important for financial institutions to grapple with. But I also think for the industry to share the information on sort of what is the total magnitude that's happening in that space.
Right.
And at the same time, I think some of the things you've talked about, trying to make sure that you're addressing the vectors that are causing it and that you try to guide the customer as best you can. But I think you said it well. It's sometimes hard to protect customers from themselves, especially on the consumer side.
It's almost impossible, really. And one of the things that occurs to me, and I've read some trade articles on this that kind of make the point, is that the attack that's going on, what's going on from the fraud side, is an orchestrated effort for what they want as the end result. And the point was being made is that the response needs to be orchestrated as well. And it's not. It's siloed, it's piecemeal. Sometimes it's not, there's no response at all. And part of it, I think, is that we have this whole notion of privacy so ingrained in us that we've, to some extent, locked ourselves out of being able to trade the information that we need to in a seamless way because everyone's running scared of privacy. I mean, I get if I see I've got a bad guy on our rolls, I would love to be able to give them up, and quickly, so that they can do something about it instead of having the wheels grind slowly through to where finally maybe there's a subpoena or something from a legal standpoint that protects the bank. And I get why the banks can't do it. They're not. I mean, it's a cost benefit. It's going to cost them more right now in our current environment. And I just think there needs to be some rethinking of safe harbor.
I think it's a great point. I mean, it kind of drives the concept of we're all better together in this fight against fraud than separately. And I think for so long, we've kind of all tried to fight it individually, and we now know that we can't keep up with the fraudsters, and it's almost impossible for mid-sized banks as opposed to even the smaller financial institutions that are in the same space. We're all fighting the same fight.
You know, the irony there is some of the really small institutions are the ones where they'll catch it because they know every client on their roll, and they know that something doesn't look normal for them. And they'll pick up the phone and call the bank. What they complain about more often than not is though the gatekeepers on the ODFI side that don't let them get through. And again, that's the privacy concern. It's everybody trying to toe the line to make sure that they're not making themselves liable for giving out information on a client who could, I guess, ostensibly end up being completely innocent of anything, and now you've given information. So, you know, I get all that, but I just think right now where we are is we've kind of backed ourselves into a corner and been able to address it industry-wise. And I mean, I think the NACHA, the new rule, is something of kind of a foot in the door, but I think for this to really get the kind of attention that it deserves is going to involve talk like they've been doing in the EU, and that's over shared liability.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. So, you know, as we mentioned, we're here at the NACHA Smarter, Faster Payments 2024 conference. You know, what are some of the topics you're diving into a little bit more deeply or interest of you? Well,
almost exclusively what we've been talking about. I've been looking at all of the tracks that have to do with, you know, fraud detection, anomaly detection, and what I'm really interested in is how that can be scalable in a way that is manageable by a bank that has material volume, but that cannot put up with false positives. And I've seen some vendors around here that look like they know what they're doing.
That's great. And I think it's the benefit of being at a conference like this is to see some of the opportunities that some of the new vendors are putting forward, or even some of the old vendors that you might have been dealing with for a while.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, there's hope. I didn't want to color it as being that, you know, we just have to put up with this because, again, I think that if we made a concerted, an orchestrated effort back against pushing back on this, I think it would end up being a winner on the cost-benefit analysis, which up until now, they're writing it off. And to your point, they don't want to disclose how much they're writing off to fraud because it's not a good look.
Nope, absolutely not. And nobody wants to get in more trouble with the CFPB.
That's right.
So what advice, you know, you've been in the payments risk world for quite some time. You've worked on a number of work groups at NACHA and other areas. You've been involved in a lot of different changes across the industry. For risk professionals coming into the world now, this payment space, it's much more electronic than it was previously. What is some advice that you would provide to those professionals?
Well, I mean, my advice is going to be based on my experience, obviously. And the biggest piece of advice I would give them is don't be shy. Dive in, engage, you know, take opportunities when they arise. My first opportunity was someone out of the blue nominating me for a work group at NACHA 30 years ago. And I kind of caught the bug there. And so my biggest piece of advice is find something you like doing in that area. If it's banking, if it's operations or risk or whatever, find something there that means something to you, that you enjoy, and take it from there, because you'll never have a day of work in your life.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tim, so much for spending some time with me today, and look forward to enjoying the rest of the conference.
Absolutely. Thanks, Peter.